get started. So first of all, welcome everybody and hello to the Centre for Child Protection's Critical Conversations Child Protection webinar series. It's really lovely for you to be joining us today. Now, the objective of this series is to facilitate learning from the latest research, practice knowledge, theory, and lived experiences around safeguarding children and young people. It's for a multi-professional group of child protection professionals. So this includes health, education, police, social work, third sector organizations, and more. Now, the Centre for Child Protection aims to get to the heart of child protection training using innovative ideas, as can be seen in our multi-award-winning public engagement, impact, and research portfolio. We offer CPD certified training sessions using interactive and engaging child protection simulations, alongside working with our postgraduate program, which includes an MA, diploma, certificate, and standalone modules. And all of this is for multidisciplinary child protection professionals. And I'm pleased to say it's all available through distance learning too. Now, we are currently celebrating our 10-year anniversary through a series of different events, including this webinar series, Critical Conversations. Now, this webinar series does have plans to continue into the next year and beyond, so please watch the space, keep an eye on our website, because I think this will be picking up again in the new year. We also have a live celebration in Canterbury next week now. It's on the 9th of November, and we have keynote speaker Professor Eileen Munro, as well as talks from Professor David Shemmings, Professor Jane Reeves, Venetia Jasal, and myself. Now, places are limited, so do book quickly. There's still some left if you wanted to join, but they are going fast. Now, also at that event on the 9th of November, we'll be announcing the winners of our inaugural Collaboration Award 2022, which I'm very much looking forward to, following some absolutely amazing nominations of outstanding multidisciplinary practice in child protection work this year. So keep an eye on our website for details of our winner and some inspiring multi-agency practice initiatives that we've been able to read and learn a lot more about. Now, before I introduce the main event, a couple of little housekeeping notes. We are recording this session, so please be aware. This is for a time-limited public distribution. PowerPoint slides will be added to our website, though when we're working towards publication, these slides might be slightly modified from what we're presenting here. The videos and microphones are disabled for a few reasons. Briefly, this is just to ensure a smooth, easy to hear, GDPR sensitive experience for everybody. Now, the chat feature is enabled, and I really want to encourage you to get onto the chat to start some discussions. Please ask some questions of Emma, network with each other. But a few quick notes about the chat. First, that's not recorded, so please use it. That's your space. We ask that you please use the chat responsibly, respectfully of others. Emma, as the presenter, will not be able to read and respond to the chat, but Aravinda and I are monitoring the chat. We'll keep an eye on it, and we will be pulling out questions throughout her talk that are placed in chat and asking Emma your questions at the end, normally the last 10-15 minutes. And we will try to get to all questions, but if we run out of time, we might not be able to. Finally, please join us on social media. You can tweet about our events by following CCP, hashtag CCP is 10, that's TEN, or hashtag Critical Conversations. And I will put a couple of links in the chat in just a second with some links to the event and the awards and that sort of thing. Okay, so without further ado, let's get ready for the primary event. So Emma Soutar has many years of experience in the voluntary and education sector. Now, during this time, she's developed a broad knowledge of issues affecting the most vulnerable in society and the frameworks in place to protect and support them too. Her passion lies in sharing this knowledge through training. So Emma is the Centre for Child Protection's lead trainer, whereby she has expertise in grooming, including sexual and criminal exploitation of children and radicalization. Emma also plays an essential role in simulation development projects, really immersing herself in the value of simulation learning. So today, Emma's going to talk with us about how child protection simulations can create safe spaces to learn and practice. So over to you, Emma.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Tracy. And thank you everyone for joining. I'm excited today to be able to show you some of our simulations. I'm going to begin with a brief presentation, and then we're going to go in and actually show you how they work and what it's all about. So today we're talking about how child protection simulations can create safe spaces to learn and also safe spaces to practice. But first, a little background about what the simulations are about. So they were began in 2010 when Professor Jane Reeves and Professor Shemmings set up the Centre for Child Protection, and they really wanted to apply some of the latest knowledge and the worlds of simulation learning to child protection. Child protection is a very complex topic, and we can create complex tools in order to be able to deliver first-class training, immersive training. And it's not only about the simulations itself, but it's also about the quality of the training that goes alongside it as well. And it's about turning on the wider safeguarding mechanisms that we have. And I'll go into this in a bit more detail, especially when we're talking about behind closed doors and some of the other simulations. And these have been going strong now for 10 years. Our latest simulation, May and Bay, is being developed in partnership with UNICEF. So it's funded by UNICEF's End Violence Against Children Fund, and it's being rolled out in Thailand and Cambodia as we speak. So these are all of our simulations. We're going to look at some of them today. We'll get through as many as we can. So we have the Rosie suite. Rosie 2 looks at engaging with complexity and neglect. We follow a health visitor and a social worker as they are visiting Rosie's family at home, and we are immersing ourselves in their world and thinking about how we assess this family, how we understand the parenting capacity that's there, and what we do to provide the best outcomes for it. And by immersing ourselves in this world and having to make decisions for the family, we're practicing our practice. And it's a very valuable experience, I think, because there are so many elements to it as well. So it's really making sure that you have an opportunity to really think about what you're looking at in the assessment situation, but also about measuring your own reactions to that as well, and thinking about your own emotional and kind of conscious competence as a professional. So lots of opportunities within that. And the same goes for My Courtroom. My Courtroom follows Rosie's family as they go on to through the court system. So if you're going to go and give evidence in court, it's good that you can have a robust, immersive training experience to get you ready for that. And that's also somewhere where you can understand what all the different files are, case files are in a bundle. So that's My Courtroom, that's Rosie, and Rosie 1 is available on our YouTube channel, so you can have a look at that and you can watch a video of Rosie 1. It's a little bit old now, but I think still just as valid. Then on the other side, we have our grooming suite. So ZAC was developed in 2014, and it looked at radicalisation into a nondescript kind of radical group. We then went on to develop Mariam and Jay Behind Closed Doors, and that's roots to a so-called radical Islamic group and the far right. We have Lottie, which is based around child sexual exploitation, and Lottie is an 18-year-old female that she's groomed by, a 14-year-old female groomed by an 18-year-old male, Jack. And what we're doing within Behind Closed Doors, looking at for Lottie and Zach, is we're going in and forensically examining the fictitious social media pages of these characters, so we gain insight into their world through that, and you'll see how they work shortly. We also developed Crossing the Line, which is around criminal exploitation, and that is a training tool for professionals that maps key vulnerabilities around criminal exploitation onto the 5 characters there, and we work with them to think about contextual safeguarding in their wider environment and their wider community. And then there is May and Bay, which is around tackling extortion and trafficking in Thailand and Cambodia. So we've done a lot over the years. This is the worlds that I occupy. I've got the great pleasure of working very closely with these simulations and understanding how they work. So it's about these innovative gaming features. It's about immersing yourself in this safe space to practice what you're doing, and reflect on that and maybe change the way that you're operating as a professional. You're having to solve problems in real time as you're going through and assessing these cases, and it enables a conversation. All of the simulations are about having a platform and a scaffold for conversation in order to be able to learn and grow. So when I train simulations, it's always done in small groups. When they go out into schools, it's done in groups where there's conversations or one-to-one with a professional, but it's about providing that structure and giving that confidence to that professional when they're delivering those direct work tools. So we're all about collaboration at the centre as well, because we don't work in a vacuum. We take the expertise from different organisations, from different sources of information, which I'll go on to in a moment. But we've worked in partnership with the NHS. They approached us to make looking out for Lottie around child sexual exploitation because they wanted some more robust training around that. We've since updated it in partnership with the NSPCC in 2018. It also formed part of a national childline campaign, and I believe there were over 2 million hits to the website over the 5-week campaign on healthy and unhealthy relationships. We worked with Kent Police when we were developing ZAC, way back with one of the first simulations when we were developing behind closed doors. It was with the Home Office and we rolled it out through the Department for Education. Currently, under UNICEF, their funding for the end of violence against children, we've been working really closely with our partners A21 and ECPAT in order to develop a learning tool that's culturally sensitive and appropriate for Thailand and Cambodia. Kafkas was who we developed my courtroom with. So the reason why I've got this slide here and I'm talking about it is so we could show the expertise that we have, and we're bringing it all in and we're weaving it all into these simulations. And I must, of course, mention Player 3, the fabulous Player 3, the gaming company that we work with. They've developed games for Disney, BBC Bite Size, all sorts of wonderful things. And none of this would be possible without them. So we're very grateful for their expertise. And so we take the information. So what we've got here is talking about the nature and the scale of exploitation in the UK. So a lot of serious case reviews, or safeguarding practice reviews as they're now called, inform, they have learning points. We need to learn from these past mistakes, and one way we can do that is we can take the recommendations and we can take the learning and we weave them into the simulations. Ofsted are brilliant because they have a national view of what the situation is in the UK, and we can use their reports to inform the direction of our simulations. We with the Children's Commissioner. The Children's Commissioner has been hugely influential in our work at the centre. The report around CSE was hugely a part of developing Lottie, and very much so in developing Crossing the Line. I remember the 2019 report back, Keeping Kids Safe, and I walked about with it in my hand for quite some time, just saying we need to do something about this. We need to create some robust training so we can tackle and we can challenge this. And this is how Crossing the Line was born, from this research. Bernardo's do fantastic research. The Children's Society, there is all sorts of government guidance. There are hate crime statistics, so we know that hate crime is constantly growing as a growing issue, and we take all of this and we put it into the simulations. We've also developed an expertise around grooming at the centre. So this is taken from a book chapter that we did a while ago now on vulnerabilities to grooming. If you'd like a copy, get in touch, I can send you a copy. And this is about the grooming matrix for factors around child sexual exploitation here in green and radicalisation in red, and we have the similarities in blue, and you can see there are a lot of similarities, and we could very easily feed criminal exploitation into there as well. And it's the same globally as well, so applying many of these things in Thailand and Cambodia, although culturally making it different. So with things we're going to really focus on today, I always say that there's just 2 key words that you need to think about when you're thinking about tackling all forms of exploitation: identity and belonging. They are really key factors in how groomers can manipulate children, and it's also a key factor, I think, in how we can bring about more resilience and how we can bring about change. But we're going to look at how that sense of identity and sense of belonging is manipulated. We're also going to look at excitement, acceptance and status, and also a transitional time of life when we look at Lottie. Finally, the last slide before I get into the simulations, there's a great piece of research that looks at creating safe spaces for dialogue across 6 European countries. So this is looking at preventing violent radicalisation, but it really it speaks sense and it resonates with the centre's work, because it is about creating safe spaces for dialogue So we can talk with community, we can talk with the children that we're working with rather than at them, because if you talk at people, you don't create that change and you don't involve them in that change. So by involving in immersive simulations, we're involving them in the change, involving them in the conversation, we're creating that safe space, and we're giving professionals confidence to do so. So now let me see, I might need to stop my share and I'm going to reshare with one of the simulations. So bear with me while I share my screen around. Okay, no, bear with me. I knew this was quite ambitious to bring about all these different simulations, but I will bring them up and we will get it sorted. There we are. I'm opening it up underneath, so now I can open it up for you guys. So we're going in now to look at behind closed doors. And in behind closed doors, we follow Mariam as she's groomed into a so-called radical Islamic group, and we follow Joe as he's groomed into the far right. So clicking on continue there, we can see we've got the different chapters. Each chapter has a real life news clip, and then we see the characters' social media's reactions to those news clips. So clicking on for hate crime, there's the news clip there, and then I'd like to go straight into Mariam's story, and we can see from the very beginning that she has been the victim of a hate crime, and this man has squirted sauce at her in the street. We see the different opinions going on and the different comments underneath as the different voices in her life. So Mum says, I just have to get used to it, but why should I? This is my home. Alia, her younger sister, is feeling really rightfully cross. She's tried to collect some evidence, but she hasn't been able to do so because it's been quite blurry. Izzy, her best friend, is quite supportive around it. And you can see there's lots of voices supporting her there. And Izzy says there are laws against this. And Mariam's saying, but what can laws do? So we can see there that Mariam's sense of identity has really been shaken by this experience. So we have an opportunity to rate it as to what sort of concern we think this might be. Now, for me, this is a major concern. And I might type why another time when I had more time as to why this is a major concern. But we're understanding how this is affecting Mariam, and it's also a reflection for us as how we feel as professionals. Normally, when I do this as professionals, it's normally concerned. Occasionally, it's angry, but most often it's concerned. So we're seeing there that Mariam's sense of identity and belonging has been shaken. And then we go down and she's posting a video on YouTube, and it's a public video for anybody to see. Sorry, I should say WeTube, not YouTube. And then we click into the comments underneath and we see here that somebody is trying to be added as a friend. So we see Katie here and we don't know anything about Katie. And Mariam's in that point where she's really wanting to explore her sense of identity and belonging, and Katie's coming along to fill that void. So what we're doing by looking at Mariam's story and understanding how this hate crime has rocked her identity, it allows us to understand how this can be a route towards radicalisation. It can also be a moment where we as professionals reflect on what services and what support there are for children in our environments who experience hate crime. And very, very importantly as well, how do the children know about them? Because we can create great services, but we need to make sure that all the children are aware of them. So we're thinking about our wider safeguarding map. And then also, this is a great tool because this can be used as a direct work tool. You can then take it into the classroom and create that safe space in order to be able to have that conversation about hate crime and make sure that people know how to go about reporting hate crime within individual organisations. So that's one tiny aspect of Mariam. I'd like to show you a small aspect of Joe as well. So Joe is he is groomed into the far right. So we'll see his reaction to this story, and we can see here that he thinks he's in a relationship with Rose, and he's in his second year at university. He didn't have a great time last year, so he's not really sure of his space. He's not really sure of actually being at university. And Rose has come along and she's trying to fill this void, and he thinks he's is, like I said, in a relationship with her, and she's saying that you need to join this group, and we see some scripted speech here from her very early on, which is a red flag, and we know that's a red flag, and we take the learning. So we take the learning from radicalisation, we take the learning from Prevent, we take the learning from case reviews, and we apply it, and we know that scripted speech is a real concern. So we've weaved it in there, and we've got a bit of scripted speech from Rose there, and she's talking about him joining a far-right group in order to be part of his family. And then he goes ahead and he joins the group, and he's desperate for that sense of belonging that's going on there. So he ventures further down the path towards the group, and we see that the group wants to try and book a speaker at the university. And again, this is learning. We know from learning about the 7/7 bombers and how active they were at university and how they're giving out flyers and quite organised. And now, because of that learning, we know what to look out for. We're engaged as well in terms of that wider safeguarding. So we're bringing about that learning, but we're also creating that conversation, that platform for children to be able to have those safe conversations around these difficult issues, because we need to be talking about it. So that is behind closed doors. I'm going to now see if I can open up Lottie and you can see it. Tracy, Aravinda, can you see Lottie okay?
No, we still see behind closed doors.
I thought you might. Okay, thank you. So that will be a stop share and a reshare again. There we are. Now you can see Lottie, yes?
Yes, we can.
Super, thank you. Okay, so this is looking at for Lottie, and this is the simulation that was developed in partnership with the NHS, and we updated it in 2018 in partnership with the NSPCC. So Lottie has two different modes within it. We've got the class mode, so the questions we ask are for direct work. We also have professional mode, so for awareness raising with colleagues. So the two different modes, same social media content. So Lottie is split into 7 different chapters, and in the 8th chapter we meet Jack the groomer. So for today, purposes of today, I really want to talk about the issues of nudes, and we know that it's a huge problem. It's a growing problem. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So it's about understanding some of the pressures that have been applied to Lottie, how she's been manipulated, how she's been groomed, and what the push and pull factors are at play for her when she's being asked for images. Because I think it's really important to understand some of those early factors and indicators. We know about them, we know how it works, so this we can create a preventative education tool within Lottie. And it's also, I think, it helps us to walk that really fine balance as professionals, because we need to make sure that we're giving out this message of don't do it, and don't share images, but equally we have to give out a message as well of, if you have done it, there's always help, always talk to somebody as well. So it's creating that kind of fine balance in terms of that education and supporting children to navigate this world. So in Lottie, in the first chapter, it's before she's going to an under-18s disco. She's very excited about that. Next, we hear after the under-18s disco that she met a lad called Jack outside, and they've exchanged numbers, and she's very excited by that. Then she's meeting up with Jack, and then the scene I'm going to look at with you today is scene number 4, and Lottie believes that she's in a relationship with Jack. So we're logging in as if we're logging into Lottie's computer. And we can see we've got the different social media sites there. So we have got hashtags for your Twitter. We've got pictogram for your Instagram. We can see there that Jack has given her a bag. So I think we're less than 2 weeks in since the under-18s disco, and there's been numerous other toys, and we see a nice handbag being given there. And we know that gifts are an indicator, or can be an indicator of grooming. So we have WeTube, so this is where Lottie can post private and public video diary entries, so we gain insight into her world. And we've got the iSocialite, we've got the mood bar alongside there, so we can see that she's feeling happy, and what's happening with her posts reflects her mood underneath. It doesn't always tally. She's woke up really early this morning, she's happy. We see the comments underneath there. We learn that Lottie is keeping the relationship secret from her mum. This is her best friend, Chloe. And so Chloe's concerned that Lottie hasn't told mum about Jack. We see the different posts as we go down. We can see here that Jack has sent a private message. So this is really crucial. This is where we understand a lot about what's happening in terms of the pressures and the grooming behaviour. So let's start with the message between Jack and Lottie. I think the first thing that comes to mind when you look at it is there's a lot of communication. So there's a constant bombardment of messages, and we know that's typical of grooming behaviour, that there's frequent messages, especially at the time of day when the child is likely to be looking at their phone. So this is what we see reflected here. So this is February the 5th. It was the 24th of January, the under-18s disco, and there's lots of flattery. He had a great time. He wishes he could see more of her. And Lottie very innocently talks about meeting up, and then he's already there. That wasn't quite what I meant. I meant that I wish I could see more of your body, if you know what I mean. So what do you say? Will you take some special pictures of yourself for me? And Lottie's really not sure about that. She's saying she feels embarrassed, and what if somebody else sees them? And Jack's trying to reassure her, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. You're beautiful, there's more flattery, etc. Lottie's saying that she's not ready, but then he's still, he sort of backs off a bit and arranges to meet up. But then he goes on and he's still applying lots of flattery, and he wants to see her, and he wants to see all of her and have all of her to himself. And he likes seeing her even better. So this constant bombardment of flattery that's there. And we've got to remember within this as well is Lottie is 14 and Jack is 18. So she's feeling quite a lot of pressure to act older, like the girls his age. And then we see there's a conversation between Chloe and Lottie. So Chloe is Lottie's best friend. And Chloe is concerned that, like we're saying, that mum needs to know about it, but she's also kind of she's backing Lottie up in some ways because she thinks it's exciting that they're in this relationship together, exciting that he takes her out for food, but also she's asking some really good questions. Does he talk about his mum and dad? What do you know about his friends? And then Lottie comes back and says, I don't really know much about his friends, and I just want to, you know, spend some more time with him, but I can see you on Sunday because he plays football on Sunday. So he switches his phone off. He's with the Black Horse League, and then Chloe comes in and says, that's weird, my brother is on that team and I don't think he knows Jack. And we can see already that Lottie is defending Jack's behaviour. She's straight in there. I imagine I might be wrong about the team name. I can't remember. So there's a warning sign there, and Lottie is not picking up on that because she believes that she's in the first flushes of love. So what we're doing is we're understanding some of the pressures at play for Lottie to send pictures, and we're creating that safe space to be able to have the dialogue around the pressure to send nudes, and we're giving professionals confidence in order to be able to talk about this very difficult but very necessary subject with the children that they're working with. So that's a little snapshot of Lottie. And I'm aware I'm going at record pace because I want to show you as much as possible. So let me open up. Next, we're going to move over to Rosie 2. So we're taking a different tack now. Bear with me. I go there. So Rosie 2 is about complexity and neglect. Ah, good. There we are. There's Rosie. So looking at Rosie, there are 13 different scenes within Rosie as we engage with her family. So we've got the preparation for the visit at the beginning. Outside the property where you've got Andrew and Beth, they are meeting up for the first time. Andrew is a new social worker to this case, so he is meeting this complex family for the first time. Beth has worked with this family for quite some time, so I think the best thing is just to go into the we'll go into the garden and we will meet the different characters that are there. There will be some background noise because we know that when we go on visits things are not always quiet and calm, so we deliberately created some background noise within the simulation, and we have some mentalization for themselves so we get to kind of understand what the characters are thinking. However, for the purposes of today, I'm not going to click on what everybody is thinking because some of the characters swear, and we've got to get used to that as professionals and think about our reactions to the complex families in where neglect is an issue, and there might be harsh environments, and you could be sworn at, and there might be aggression. So it's about practicing your reaction to that, as well as assessing this really complex situation that we've got there. So as we go into Rosie, I invite you just to think about who we have here, and what is your assessment of the situation? What do you feel you need to do next?
I wish I knew what they're all thinking.
Really worried about this visit.
There we have a piece. We've met the characters there, so you can see there's a lot going on. There's a lot of complexity. There's also some twins that we need to see today, Jade and Charlie. They are 10-month-old twins, and there are concerns about their well-being. There's concerns about their weight. So we have to work out how we navigate through this visit and what we do next. We have to think about how we assess Connie's parenting capacity. We have to think how we're assessing the immediate safeguarding issues and the neglect issues for all of the children, as I say, particularly the twins. What I'd like to do for the purposes of today is just to briefly go into the kitchen scene. So we see Tiffany in the kitchen, and we're thinking about what our assessment of the situation is, what our assessment of the kitchen environment is. And what's really important, I think, within this scene is that we need to be really honest about what our assessment is of the environment, and what judgments we might be bringing, what emotions we might be bringing to this, so that we're not bringing our value judgments towards the state of the kitchen, but we're bringing a genuine professional assessment to it. It's also really important and really topical, I think, more than ever now, when you've got to distinguish between maybe some of the issues around poverty and neglect. So it's just about defining all of those things. But let's go and have a look at the kitchen. Okay.
Hey, Tiffany, do you mind if I check the full situation while I'm here? I'll get back to Connie after this.
Well, we are just out of milk, and we were going to get coupons on the way to the doctor's. It's shopping day today. The kids just keep on eating the food.
Well, what are the twins going to eat for lunch?
Oh, just some chips, probably.
Connie and I have talked before about the importance of regular meals for all the children, with lots of fruit and veg and having food and snacks in. We talked last time about using frozen veg, as it can be more convenient.
Oh, yes, we do that now.
I think it would be good to arrange someone to come round and help Connie prepare the food for the twins.
So we can see there we're assessing in the kitchen environment and thinking about the best way to move forward. What's the best way to have the conversations with Tiffany and Connie? There's been some conversation already had about healthy eating and the use of vegetables, but however, that doesn't seem to have transpired into reality. We also need to consider at this point whether Beth and Andrew are taking an over-optimistic view of the situation. So that's a tiny snippet of Rosie, and it's got 13 scenes in total. There's a lot to it, talking about that relationship building and assessing Connie's parenting capacity. We look at some direct work with Rosie as well. So it creates an opportunity to really assess this complex family in a really engaging way, and to think about what the thresholds are for services, the thresholds for interventions, and the different action plans you might take having spent time with this family. And by also having training where you can discuss it in a wider forum as well, you're gaining ideas and best practice and best theory from your colleagues in the environment that you're in. We've got reflection points and research weaves throughout this as well. So we're weaving in that really important learning that can be created from serious case reviews. We know in the serious case review of Baby P, as it was called then rather than the safeguarding practice review, that there was a big issue around not assessing the men in the situation. So it's really important that we assess the men that we can see here, and also we know that there are other men around as well within the wider family, because we provide background and we provide a genogram around that. So we're immersing ourselves in what we can see, and really importantly to pick up and notice the things that we can't. So that gives you a flavour of Rosie, and how I think this is the when I talked about practicing practice, and when I was thinking about the title for this webinar, that was the thing that really came to mind, because you really get to walk through and practice assessing this family in a really valuable fashion. The next simulation I'd like to go on to is My Courtroom. So this was developed in partnership with CAFCAS, and this allows professionals to walk through and understand the court process, and think about how to give evidence and how to navigate a courtroom environment. Bear with me, just trying to move my bar at the top. There we are, lovely. So it allows you to walk through the court process and to gain that experience and gain the training around that. And there's all sorts of information within here, because we look at private and we look at public law. So I'm just going to briefly show you a couple of snippets around this. So earlier on in the introductions, I was talking about the importance of understanding the bundles and the case files. So we have an example where we can go in and look at some of the case files, understand more about what some of the different reports are. And also, if you're having to write a report yourself as well, you can see some models of best practice around there. The interactive courtroom is actually a resource that can be used with children if they're having to go into court, but it's also really useful for professionals as well if they're going into court for the first time. So it gives us an idea of who everybody is within the courtroom. So we see the magistrate there, and we have an explanation around that. We have the explanation around whether to swear or affirm. We move around the courtroom, we see the family court advisor. We learn things like you can't take food or drink into the courtroom, but there are jugs of water and glasses available for everybody. So to help you feel more confident and more comfortable within the court environment, here we have the usher. And then I think finally we'll switch around. There he is. So, and there we have the social worker. So these are just tiny aspects of My Courtroom that I'm showing to you, but there, it goes into a great deal of depth. Again, like Rosie 2, where there's lots of scenes, and I only showed you a snippet. I'm only showing you a tiny bit of My Courtroom today. We talk about first directions hearing, wishes and feelings, go into the case management, and then I'd just like to show you a very tiny bit from the final hearing. So we see the social worker is in the court, and he is going to give evidence. So I'm going to show you a tiny snippet, but we know all the attendees, everyone who's in the courtroom, and we can.
Welcome back. I now need to hear evidence in respect of the twins and future plans. Local authority?
Can you please clarify for the court your observations and assessments of the twins and their foster placement?
What's this, the twins every time? They did that before. They are individual children, you know. As referred to in the bundle, Charlie and Jade have been placed with Mr. and Mrs. Pitt. This has been a consistent placement, which meets their needs well.
So I think the interesting thing with all of these, particularly with My Courtroom, simulation is I would have really liked to have had my courtroom before the first time I ever had to give evidence in court. It would have been a really useful experience in order to feel equipped and understanding the environment that's there. So you can see how we've taken the learning, we've worked in partnership with CASCAS, and we've created this learning environment. I'm glad I've been able to run you through a whistle-stop tour of some of the simulations and give you an idea of how we create that safe space to practice, and that safe space to learn. And I'm happy to take any questions now.
Lovely, thank you so much, Emma. It was really exciting to see all the simulations laid out like that. I have a couple of questions that have come in privately. The first one is, you talked about the fine balance between don't share images and then if you have, we won't judge, come and talk, ask for help kind of balancing. How would you recommend this message is presented to children and young people? And do you think these simulations can help?
I definitely think the simulations can help with that. That's a really good question, and it's really topical as well, because I think the way that we tackle particularly the issues around CSE and nudes and the very notion of victim blaming has really come a long way, and we're at a very exciting point in terms of child protection around that. I would say some really good resources around that are the Children's Society have a great guide on not using victim blaming language, and so we can really challenge ourselves as professionals in order to do that. So I would say the Children's Society guide is a really good place to start. And then by providing, it goes back again to that safe space for conversation. So rather than just someone standing there saying, don't share the news to you, because you're interrogating what's going on for Lottie and her social media and the fact that she's being groomed. And so if you can do that in a sympathetic way and an understanding way, and you're ensuring that you're not victim blaming, and you can create that safe space for conversation, and you also ensure that you are making yourself available and open post discussion, so anybody can share concerns or know how they can share concerns, it creates this whole structure around it. I hope that answers that for you. Brilliant.
Yes, thank you. Another question is, how can people access the simulations? Would these work, and would they work if that person is abroad?
Yeah, they work if they're abroad, yes. So yeah, so Mayan Bay is used in Thailand and Cambodia. Rosie 2 is, I was going to mention that. Rosie 2 is used in South Australia. So it's used for training social workers there. So a big issue they have when they walk into the yard is making sure that the social worker has got the appropriate clothing and isn't just in shorts and flip-flops, because that might not be appropriate or could possibly be dangerous if you're in a hazardous environment. So yes, they work perfectly well abroad, all over the world. Lottie is used in Malaysia as well. So there's a very interesting way of using that there. Lots of different examples. So yes, you come on training sessions. I run public training sessions. I can do bespoke training sessions. I can run them online. I'm now really pleased to say I'm doing them face to face as well. So you get fully trained to kind of immerse yourself in the simulation, become very comfortable with it, and start to form a partnership. I always say to everyone I train, it's about forming that partnership so that we don't just give you the simulation and kind of cast you off into the world. You can come back and talk about any ways you want to present it or any issues that you come up against.
Thanks, Emma. How much input do children have into the development of these simulations?
Not enough is the honest answer. So this is changing, because it's something that was really changing with Mayan Bay. Children had a lot of input into that. So as best we could, we had for the character development, they had input into the character development, into the gaming features, into the emojis that go onto the body weather map. We did numerous surveys with children to look at some of the sort of flat features, and then some of the early versions of the game. This is our partners on the ground out there consulted with the children. So that was really, really positive, a really good step forward. I think with crossing the line, which I didn't have time to show you today, we really widely consulted with stakeholders while we were building it, and we tend to kind of, so far we consult with professionals and we consult with the experts, but not enough with the children. But I hope more in the future.
Brilliant, thank you. There was another question there about accessing the simulations, but I think Emma's answered that now. And Aravind has also put a link in the chat that you can click on to look at more in terms of when the sessions are available. And again, please contact us afterwards as well. We'll be happy to answer more questions. I have one more question at the moment, and that is, it's an interesting one as well. So working in a disabled young people's team, and many young people who are nonverbal or lack that definitive understanding, how would this be beneficial to them or for us as social workers trying to gain an understanding of their thoughts?
I think that's a really tricky one, because I think that what you can do is we can look at some of the individual posts around it, but if you've got non-verbal children, so I'm just thinking about that because it's a really good question, and you can understand about young people's online lives if they've got the capacity where they're engaging online and some of the risks and the challenges around that. And I know certainly Bernardo's have got some great reports around that, particularly boys and online behaviour. So we can understand the landscape and the relationships that children can build online. So that's helpful to understand the world that they're occupying. So I guess that's the way that it helps. And I guess that it's just being really sure that you put the safeguarding in place and that you're aware of what's happening online for these children and what's going on with their online lives. Because if they're not able to feel like they can communicate, they can be tempted to explore their identities online, and we saw Mariam exploring her identity online and the consequences of that. I wouldn't say they're not a perfect fit, and it's a shame that we don't have something that is a perfect fit, but I think anything where we can just increase our understanding of how these factors and indicators and this learning from what we know is only going to increase our confidence and our knowledge as professionals.
And I just want to add there as well, one of the things that often happens when we talk about simulations is people come up with amazing new ideas, and we're always looking for the next simulation, the next societal agenda element to sort of unpack and unpick and train and promote within child protection professionals, communities. So one of those things is we almost got off the ground another simulation which was looking at work with neurodiverse children, which we were really excited about. But unfortunately, these things come with a huge funding price tag because of the technological elements that you have to pay for and the development of the simulation. So this is one of the things that was very much on our agenda, and unfortunately we didn't get the funding to do. But it's not to say it's not something that will maybe it will come up again in the future, because it is something that I think should be out there and I think could be of great value.
Yeah, and I say, it's just like Tracy says, the amount of time that it takes and knowledge that goes into these simulations. They might look fairly simple at the front face and easy and engaging and interactive, but May and Bay were just coming to the end of the 2-year project, but it took a good 15 months before we had anything that was vaguely kind of usable and the storylines behind it. So a lot of work goes into it. Lovely. I might have to mute in a second because the postman is about to put some letters through the box and the dogs are probably going to go nuts, but so long as everything remains quiet, I don't think we've had any other questions. So I think I just want to say a huge thank you, Emma. I think it's been really valuable to have a look through them, to hear you talk about your expertise, particularly with the grooming simulations, but also with the Rosie simulation. So thank you for your time today. It's been really helpful. Thank you everybody for coming. It's been a real pleasure to just really reflect on the simulation learning, and I feel very lucky to be a part of them and to be sharing them with people.
Brilliant. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everybody.